Hi, it's Martin here, and a lot of people ask me about Twitter and its use, and so I thought I'd put together this presentation about how I use Twitter, just as an example. So if I share my screen, and we'll just take a look, and I'll try and present using Google Plus here. Right, here we go. So yeah, this is about using social media, primarily, most exclusively about Twitter. So let me start. So at Christmas, I discovered wisdom. Let me show you what I mean. Just a second. Okay, well, I could play the rest of that song, but I'm assuming that this is not always everybody's type of music. So, but wisdom, I kind of like at the moment symphonic metal music. And I was looking at stuff. Boxing Day, I discovered wisdom. And so I found them on Twitter and asked them a question. When will their video be ready? And they replied just a few hours later, Boxing Day, shooting scheduled tomorrow. So it just shows, I thought, as an example of how you can interact with people via social media. It's just a good example. Shooting scheduled tomorrow. After that, it's going to take some time for production. There's another example that came in yesterday. Steve Wheeler from Portsmouth University has got a new book out, and that book has a lot of the parts of that book is kind of like curated from social media interactions. And I was really pleased to see yesterday that Steve had featured me in his new book. I Am Time Called, down here, by the way. I'll explain what that is about later. But one thing about this is, the content of the book was kind of created in a sense from conversations, well, it certainly involved people in conversations. And then what Michael Steve's clever marketing of that book is about hooking people in. So I've been part of that book. I've retweeted this. I've shared this tweet because I'm quite chuffed to be in his book, and therefore quite happy to share that with my social media community. And so Steve Wheeler, it's a good example of modern marketing, modern business production, if you like. You co-create, you involve your community in what you're doing at all levels, in the creation, in the production, etc. So there's another example. So what's going on? Well, some of you might remember, over 10 years ago, Friedman's classic "The World is Flat" book about globalization, the kind of idea that the playing field is flatter, it's leveler now. Startups, people can get going with very little, as we see all these young entrepreneurs that seem to make millions on YouTube these days, for example. But products, you can market your product, you can engage your audience a lot easier now than you used to, when you had to go and spend a lot of money on marketing companies and media companies. A lot of it you can do yourself. Another concept of the world is flat is the 6 degrees of separation, that in our network age, you can often get to anybody else on that network, almost anybody else on the planet, because this is a concept actually from the 1920s, I think, 6 degrees of separation. You can almost reach anybody on the planet through 6 steps if you can get to the big nodes, the big influencers like Steve Wheeler, for example, and some others I'll show you soon. But that's the network today. And there's another riff on that is 6 degrees of bacon, because I think if you can get to Bacon up here, I can't remember his first name now, is it Steve Bacon? Then you're able to probably to get to a lot more people on the planet and shorten your 6 degrees of separation. Because it's Kevin Bacon, so Kevin Bacon up here, because he seems to work with everybody in Hollywood. and he's extremely well connected. So he's become well known. If you Google 6 degrees of bacon, then you'll probably see what I mean. You can get your bacon number, actually, how connected you are. And it's probably as a result of Kevin Bacon that the world has got flatter. In 2008, their calculation, it was about 5.28 hops between anybody on the planet, on the network anyway. And in 2011, it had dropped down to 4.74 hops. The world is getting flatter. It's getting more connected. And I don't know if there's any progress on that, whether it's even flatter now. I imagine it could be. So one reason this is important is the way you engage your audience. Marketing is completely different now. It's not really just about broadcasting to everybody, it's about engaging people. As Peter Aceto had mentioned here, that he'd rather engage in a Twitter conversation with a single customer than a huge media campaign. It can be more meaningful. And of course, now recently, I think it's a couple of weeks ago, this news item that Google search now links to brands' social profiles. So what you do on social media is very important. You know, it comes up as part of search ranks, and people looking for a job know this. For example, you know, you Google somebody and you find what they've been saying on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. Same for brands, same for institutions, organizations. So what I thought I'd do was to just show you how I use Twitter as an example. So my first tweet, I didn't realise it was so late, well, not late at night, but 9:18 on the 16th of October 2007. I think Twitter had been going, you know, just under a year by that time, I think about 9-10 months. I was a bit late, as it were. But I had back in a UMPC, an ultra mobile PC with a small keyboard, which explains why my Twitter name is Timecalled. I thought I'd choose some kind of geeky sort of name like Time Lord. Ah, yeah, Doctor Who, Time Lord. And I was surprised to be able to get it. I know Twitter had only been going for about 9 months or 10 months, but I thought Time Lord would have gone. But it was only later that I realised I made a typo. And when I couldn't log in, and realised that I spelled it wrong. But I thought I'd just keep that, and that's what I am. I tried to post justify it, you know, with a like a thread through time, and riffing it as called like horn, you know, instead of being called, being KORD. Anyway, enough of that. So my first tweet was way back then in 2007. And here's some examples of coming up of how I use Twitter. There's my Twitter kind of small profile corner there, with an image of the network and our little place in it. And in fact, in my glasses there is a network as well. So a lot of these are quite old, because I've stopped doing it. I used to capture some of these interactions, and there's been so many recently that I've not really bothered so much. But so way back 2012 here, I was quite chuffed to see myself mentioned in the same page there as, some of you may know, Tom Peters, John Hagel. Tom Peters, famous management leadership speaker, and John Hagel, he works for the Centre for the Edge, also quite famous. And again, interactions with some people that I read their books and hear their stuff. Tom Peters again, I was having a conversation, as it were, on Twitter with a few people about change and technology, and in pops Tom Peters out of the blue with an example about, well, he gave an example of railway lines at one point, and here's something I captured where he was talking about phones and writing, about how sometimes people are a little bit frightened of change. That was quite amazing. He just popped into the conversation. Don Tapscott, you may know, who wrote Grown Up Digital and lots of other books about generation and change. He's thanked me there for a link to an article about new architectures of work. Steve Dennin, maybe you've heard of him, but is again pretty famous management thinker, writer. who retweets RT Time, called the fourth wave of productivity of organisation, about bottom-up productivity enabled by constantly connected workers. He thanked me for that one. And JP Ragswamy, whose Twitter name is Jobsworth, is the CTO of Salesforce. I just gave him a little bit of feedback on one of the articles he had, and just thank there. So you can see the interactions going on. I talk a lot about Web Squared. It's a concept that Tim O'Reilly and John Patel came up with. Tim O'Reilly came up with the concept of Web 2, and I think it was around 2008 or so he came up with the concept of Web Squared, about the exponential changes that are going on when web meets world. And you know, I just tweeted that Tim O'Reilly and John Patel had described the current era perfectly with mobile, social, cloud. And Tim O'Reilly pops in and said, yeah, we did nail that one. The author of the book, the author of the concept. There's John Hagel. He's with a spelling mistake there, in fact. The dysfunctions of high anxiety organisation. He's just putting out on his social network a blog I'd written about what's OCD in organisations. You know, the need to, the fear of doing something new, and the kind of responses of more bureaucracy that a lot of organisations have. But I was quite really pleased to see John Hagel. I did capture that one from John Hagel, kind of putting out information about my blog post. Now, there was I've captured these ones as an example of 2011 way back, of when I was having a conversation on Twitter about capitalism with John Hagel and Steve Denning in the mix. And Steve Brazil, a marketeer from New York, popped in and tried to was given a kind of almost like a Twitter tutorial on capitalism, consumer, creator, you know, the exchange of value in a free market. When I was talking about capitalism 4, where the barriers between company and customer merge, I was talking about networks there, you know, the things I've been referring to previously, where companies, organizations engage more closely with their customer and almost merge as one. And I asked, you know, if that boundary between creator and producer and consumer would blur. And he asked me to show one example, and he put me on the line there, you know, show one example of a company that is both producer and creator and kind of consumer. So I just come across this story about Nike and the way that their customers can use a web page to design their shoes and have them created and produced for them, so that the consumer in that case is the creator, the designer for, you know, a company. A move away from, you know, mass production into customized production. The company becomes more of a platform than the the designer. And I was quite pleased with that one, because Steve Brazil, Hitman in this case, I've got it. I understand where you're going. It's about co-design sustainability. So I was quite pleased with that one. But it's an example of, you know, almost like a tutorial on the internet with leading thinkers. There's another example of that, where I was back in 2011 again. You know, I was watching Wimbledon, and I always noticed this guy in all the video, all the films, all the coverage. You see his picture down the bottom there with a hat on. So I tweeted out, used the hashtag Wimbledon. Hashtag, by the way, if you're not familiar with them, you know, I had difficult with that concept of it's not part of the platform, it's not part of Twitter, it's what people had put in themselves. So you just put a word in, and to distinguish it from normal text, you just put the hash in front of it, and you can search on that. So I put the hashtag Wimbledon, so anybody that is searching for Wimbledon would see my tweet, and I got a reply back. Well, I said, who's the lucky old guy with cowboy hat at every game? And the deconstructor sent me a link to what is an honorary steward. So that answered my question. Again, from the network, from the community. It's really quite useful for that. Oops, I flipped quickly over to the next slide, and it was right. Kind of, yeah, and just to finish off, really, you know, Twitter is a form of feedback, you know, here, for example, from the RSC London saying, almost like thanking me for my philosophical stance on connectivist education, mobiles, construction and knitting. And then feedback from a student, an ambassador at one of at that same event, in fact, thanking me for my speech, as it were. She's a psychology student, and I had a lot of psychology content in that. It was about education and motivation, and it was the psychology of motivation. So that seemed to be useful for her. And probably to finish off with one that I did capture this one because it always makes me smile. On my Future of Technology and Education 140-second challenge. Yes, this Martin King guy rocks. I really quite like that. Okay, so let me come out of full screen and let me just get back to you. And you should see me back. Okay, well, thanks for your time. I'm not sure if that's very helpful, but make the most of it. Bye.